Chapter 7. The Trial of Jealousy. Numbers 5, 11 to 31. And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, Speak unto the children of Israel, and say unto them, If any man's wife go aside and commit a trespass against him, and a man lie with her carnally, and it be hid from the eyes of her husband, and be kept close, and she be defiled, and there be no witness against her, neither she be taken with the matter, and the spirit of jealousy come upon him, and he be jealous of his wife, and she be defiled, or if the spirit of jealousy come upon him, and he be jealous of his wife, and she be not defiled, then shall the man bring his wife unto the priest, and he shall bring her offering for her, the 10th part of an ephah of barley meal. He shall pour no oil upon it, nor put frankincense thereon, for it is an offering of jealousy, an offering of memorial, bringing iniquity to remembrance. And the priest shall bring her near, and set her before the Lord. And the priest shall take holy water in an earthen vessel, and of the dust that is in the floor of the tabernacle the priest shall take, and put it into the water. And the priest shall see the woman before the Lord, and uncover the woman's head, and put the offering of memorial in her hands, which is the jealousy offering, and the priest shall have in his hand the bitter water that causeth the curse. And the priest shall charge her by an oath, and say unto the woman, If no man have lain with thee, and if thou hast not gone aside to uncleanness with another instead of thy husband, be thou free from this bitter water that causeth the curse. But if thou hast gone aside to another instead of thy husband, and if thou be defiled, and some man have lain with thee beside thine husband, then the priest shall charge the woman with an oath of cursing. And the priest shall say unto the woman, The Lord make thee a curse and an oath among thy people, when the Lord doth make thy thigh to rot, and thy belly to swell. And this water that causeth the curse shall go into thy bowels, to make thy belly to swell, and thy thigh to rot. And the woman shall say, Amen, Amen. And the priest shall write these curses in a book, and he shall blot them out with the bitter water. And he shall cause the woman to drink the bitter water that causeth the curse, and the water that causeth the curse shall enter into her, and become bitter. Then the priest shall take the jealousy offering out of the woman's hand, and shall wave the offering before the Lord, and offer it upon the altar. And the priest shall take an handful of the offering, even the memorial thereof, and burn it upon the altar, and afterward shall cause the woman to drink the water. And when he hath made her to drink the water, then it shall come to pass that, if she be defiled and have done trespass against her husband, that the water that causeth the curse shall enter into her, and become bitter, and her belly shall swell, and her thigh shall rot, and the woman shall be a curse among her people. And if the woman be not defiled, but be clean, then she shall be free, and shall conceive seed. This is the law of jealousies. When a wife goeth aside to another instead of her husband, and is defiled, or when the spirit of jealousy cometh upon him, and he be jealous over his wife, and shall set the woman before the Lord, and the priest shall execute upon her all this law. Then shall the man be guiltless from iniquity, and this woman shall bear her iniquity. Numbers 5, 11 to 31. This is an extremely important text, a law, but also much more than a law. It is, moreover, a very much misunderstood text. Humanists call it an example of a primitive trial by ordeal, and even biblical commentators have so described it. In reality, it's the antithesis of a trial by ordeal. The ordeal was a form of trial common to all parts of the world, and it still persists in some areas. It continued in Europe to the 13th century. It was especially important in ancient Germanic cultures, and the Germanic tribes continued its use long after their conversion. It was carried by them into England, and was widely used there. Because of this importation into Christendom, the ordeal was cloaked in Christian language but its premises were radically pagan. If the ordeal were a duel, it was believed that the man in the right would win. In a water ordeal, the suspected person was bound and cast into deep waters. If the water rejected the woman or man, if their body floated, it was considered evidence of guilt. The water had rejected them. If the person sank, that is, if they were received by the water, they were pulled and declared innocent if they survived the ordeal. Fire and water ordeals were common, both being important aspects of nature and basic quote-unquote elements. The Church was able to curtail ordeals by forbidding, in 1215, any participation by the clergy or their presence as a part of the court. Trial by battle was less easily abolished. The basic premise of the ordeal was the goodness of nature. Jean-Jacques Rousseau revived the essentials of this faith with his philosophy. The source of justice was not from a God beyond nature, but from powers within nature. The appeal of the ordeal was to the essential justice of the world order. Alexander Pope's statement, "Whatever is right," the like premise of Lenny Bruce, of the 20th century sexual revolution and more, was the faith of the trial by ordeal. It was a turning away from God to nature for truth and justice. Such trials were thus a logical part of non-biblical religions. The trial by jealousy was the direct antithesis of the ordeal. No judgment was expected from nature because the natural order, men included, is a fallen realm. Because creation is under a curse, Genesis 3:17-19, it is not, nor can it be normative, it's fallen. Because man is also fallen and is the cause of the fall, he is not normative, nor can he be the source of law. Instead of a trial by ordeal, which means a trial by nature, there must be rather a trial by God and by God's law. The trial of jealousy was given as a radical contradiction to the ordeal. The facts about this kind of trial are indicative of this. Such a trial was resorted to only when suspicion rather than evidence existed. A man might rightly or wrongly suspect his wife of adultery. What was at stake was the legitimacy of the children. Would the heir be the man's child or another's? Hebrew records indicate that such a trial was not casually resorted to. Two possibilities were obviously involved. Either the wife was guilty and the suspicion was valid, or the husband was wrongly suspicious and the woman was innocent. The couple had to appear at the sanctuary. The woman bore in her hands an offering of barley meal provided by her husband. A cereal offering was used as a sin offering. Leviticus 5:11. The woman's hair was to be unbound and allowed to hang loose instead of being braided. In a sense, she was being unmade because the suspicion had hurt her status in the community. Such a trial could not be entered into lightly. The priest then charged the woman with an oath, to which her response was, "Amen, amen." This was to indicate total assent to the proceedings and the will of God. The woman was then to drink what was called the bitter water, not because of any taste, but because the trial was a bitter fact for her. Holy water had been taken and placed in an earthen vessel, and a little dust from the floor of the tabernacle mixed into it. From the naturalistic perspective, this was a harmless drink. No serious consequences, if any, should follow. If, however, the woman were guilty, the water would cause her belly to swell into a false pregnancy, her thigh to rot, and sterility to ensue. If she were innocent, there would be no consequence whatsoever. The woman would be acquitted. "And shall conceive seed," verse 28. In the offering prescribed for this trial, oil and frankincense, representing the Holy Spirit and joy, were barred. Psalm 45:7, 1 Samuel 10:1. Oil and frankincense were also gifts of love and honor. Ezekiel 23:41. It is God's providential intervention which establishes the guilt. There is nothing natural about the verdict. The whole process of the ordeal is here reversed by God. It is not man or nature whose law or verdict must prevail, but the law of God. This trial makes a mockery of the trial by ordeal. Only God's supernatural intervention provides a verdict. Justice has one source, God. Hence, men must not look to man or nature for law and justice, but to God alone. This kind of trial lasted for centuries, but had disappeared a century or two before Christ's time. In verse 23, we are told that the data concerning such a trial had to be recorded immediately by the priest. Specifically, the curses were recorded and then washed into the water of testing. If she were innocent, the water became an instrument of blessing. She shall conceive and have children. Verse 28. The humiliation of this trial was turned into a blessing, and she was accorded honor as a mother in the covenant family. Some have read verse 22 as describing also a miscarriage, but there is no evidence for this reading. The vindication of the woman, if no consequences followed at once, was also the indictment, as it were, of the husband for false suspicion. The spirit of jealousy in him was publicly proven to be false and unjustified. This trial was also a vindication of God as the source of justice, as against nature and man. This law stands somewhat alone in the body of law. Some of the laws given throughout the books of Moses require legal judgments by human courts in terms of God's law. Other laws, many of them, leave the judgment to God's providential activities in history or his judgments beyond history. This law states that, in a particular case, God intervenes directly to render judgment in a way that contradicts all trials by ordeal, all trust in the natural law and justice of nature. Such a trust was slowly won during the medieval era from nature to God. The ordeal was banned from legal practice, but at the same time, philosophers with the revival of Aristotle began to restate the trust in nature in more sophisticated forms. The Renaissance and then the Enlightenment once again enthroned nature and nature's law. Romanticism, with Jean-Jacques Rousseau, furthered this exaltation. We still have this faith in the form of environmentalism, animal rights, and like movements. Another development took place within Romanticism. The Marquis de Sade accepted the sovereignty and normative character of nature, but he stripped it of all pseudo-Christian content. Alexander Pope, in his An Essay on Man, declared, "Remember, man, the universal cause acts not by partial but by general laws, and what makes what happiness we justly call subsist not in the good one, but all. There's not a blessing individuals find, but some way leans and hearkens to the kind. No bandit fierce, no tyrant mad with pride, no caverned hermit rests self-satisfied, who most to shun or hate mankind pretend, seek an admirer, or would fix a friend. Abstract what others feel, what others think, all pleasures sicken, and all glories sink. Each has his share, and who would more obtain, shall find the pleasure pays not half the pain. Order is heaven's first law." Canto 4, stanza 2. For Pope, man's happiness rests on the good of all. Nature gives us personal fulfillments as we work in harmony with her and our fellow men. If we work contrary to this, all pleasures sicken and all glories sink, because order is heaven's first law, and by heaven, Pope means a deistic heaven and the whole realm of nature. Sade continued with the worship of nature, but denied the pseudo-Christian veneer of morality ascribed to it. His view of an anti-moral nature, red in tooth and claw, turned Rousseau's views upside down, and according to Paglia, prefigures the theories of aggression in Darwin, Nietzsche, and Freud. For him, cruelty, perverse sexuality, and evil mark nature. Force, not love, is the law of the universe, the highest pagan truth. Modern thinkers have been heavily influenced by Sadean premises. The idea of nature as normative has given way to nature as totally permissive. This faith has been promulgated by the Kinsey reports, and it finds expression in the sexual revolution, homosexual rights groups, the abortion movement, transsexual operations, and so on. For many, in this chaos of the new view of nature, man, or the states of plants' nature, the results have been anarchism on the one hand and statism on the other. A major movement has taken a different turn. As Paglia pointed out in the decadent phase of Romanticism, art supplants nature, and the artist becomes the new priest, and the art gallery the new church. The objet d'art becomes the centre of fetishistic connoisseurship. Person is transformed into beautiful thing, beyond the law. As against all this stands the witness of this trial by jealousy. It tells us that the natural order has sin and therefore innocence which is unvindicated. It has jealousy, an absence of justice within the fallen realm. God's law is man's only recourse against injustice, and God can and does intervene in the affairs of men and the natural realm to further His purpose and justice. We must never forget that the triune God is closer to us than we are to ourselves.